She gave him the love I thought was mine. I used to believe love was something you earned by staying loyal, showing up every day, and being the kind of man who didn't run when things got hard. I thought that if you cared with your whole heart, if you stayed consistent, if you kept choosing the same person in every season of life, they would keep choosing you too. It sounds simple, almost naive, but that's genuinely how I lived. Love, to me, was commitment. It was steady. It was real. But life has a way of proving that even the strongest hearts can be wrong. I met Mia 8 years ago in a cafe. She was sitting near the window, drawing in a notebook, weaving shapes that made no sense to me but seemed to make perfect sense to her. I didn't know how to approach her at first, or what words could open a door into someone's world like hers. But she looked up at me and smiled, and something in her eyes made me feel welcome. That was all it took. I said something stupid about how her drawing reminded me of constellations, and she laughed, saying the stars were always her escape. For years, she became my escape. We built a life slowly, movie nights, burnt pancakes, long drives, arguments that ended with us curled into each other because we didn't know how to stay angry for long. She was the first person who ever made me feel like home wasn't a place. It was her. I told myself she was mine because love felt mutual, balanced, safe. I never imagined she could give the parts of herself that mattered, her attention, her softness, her time, to someone else. Not her. Not the woman who cried on my chest the night her mother passed. Not the woman who made me coffee every morning with a different message written in marker on the cup. Not the woman who told me I was the only person who ever made her feel understood. For a long time, she was the best part of my life. I didn't lose her overnight. People rarely do. Love rot is slow and silent, like water seeping into wood until it softens, weakens, and splits. The first crack appeared 2 years ago, though I was too blind to see it for what it was. She started staying late at work. At first, I told myself it was just stress, just deadlines, just her trying to prove herself. But the late nights multiplied, the excuses grew vague, and her energy changed. She was tired in ways she didn't explain. She smiled less. She touched me less. She laughed at jokes that weren't mine. Jokes she refused to share the source of. Still, I trusted her. Completely. Trust is quiet. It doesn't fight. It doesn't argue. It waits. I kept waiting, telling myself things would return to normal. But the truth was, she was already slipping away. One night, she came home wearing perfume I didn't recognize. It wasn't hers. She never wore anything too strong. She kept things light, subtle, floral. But this scent was unmistakably bold, musky, something a man would choose for her. Something a man had chosen for her. When she hugged me, my body knew before my mind did. You can sense the presence of someone else without needing evidence. The space between you isn't silent anymore. It's crowded. She said she had dinner with coworkers. I didn't question it. I didn't want to be the kind of partner who made accusations based on insecurities. I wanted to be the man she could trust to believe her. So, I swallowed the doubt and convinced myself I was imagining things. But the cracks kept spreading. She charged her phone more often. She smiled at messages she didn't show me. She guarded her screen like it held her heart. And even though she still kissed me goodnight, she didn't look at me the same way anymore. Her lips were warm, but her mind was somewhere else. One evening, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the table. I wouldn't have looked if the notification banner hadn't flashed a name I didn't recognize, Elias. A simple message.
Can't stop thinking about you.
My stomach dropped. My hands shook. But I didn't open the message. I put the phone down. I stepped back like it had burned me. I wasn't ready to know. Knowing makes you responsible. She came out of the shower humming. She kissed my cheek. She asked if I wanted tea. She moved through the room like nothing was wrong. And I watched her, wondering how she managed to live 2 lives while I struggled to live one. For weeks, the name haunted me. I didn't ask her. I didn't confront her. I wanted her to tell me the truth on her own, because I believed that love meant honesty, even when it hurt. But she stayed silent, and silence has a way of confirming what you already fear. The night I finally learned everything, the sky was raining. I remember because I had gone to pick her up from work after she texted that her car wouldn't start. I drove there in a hurry, soaking wet by the time I reached the entrance, only to find her walking out with him. Elias. He was tall, confident-looking, the kind of man who carried himself like he owned every room he entered. She was smiling at him, smiling in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. She touched his arm. He touched hers. Their bodies leaned toward each other in that unconscious way two people do when they share something intimate. She didn't see me at first, but he did. And when she finally turned and her eyes met mine, her face changed completely. Panic, guilt, a tremble in her lips. It was the kind of reaction you can't fake. The kind you only have when your truth has been caught standing beside you.
He stepped back.
She stepped forward. I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I didn't break down. I just looked at her and asked quietly how long. She couldn't answer. Her silence was the answer. I drove home alone. She didn't come after me. I waited beside the window like a fool for 2 hours, convincing myself she needed time to think, to breathe, to explain. But when she finally walked through the door, she didn't come to me. She sat on the far end of the couch, head down, fingers twisting the sleeves of her sweater. She cried before she spoke. She said she never meant for it to happen.
She said she was confused.
She said she still loved me, but loved him too. She said she didn't know when she lost herself. I listened to every word, even though each one broke something inside me. When she finished, she looked at me like she was waiting to be forgiven. Like my heart was a door she could knock on whenever she remembered she still needed shelter. But she wasn't the same woman I met by the cafe window. And I wasn't the man willing to lose himself just to keep her. For days, we lived like strangers. We slept on opposite sides of the bed. She cooked meals she didn't eat.
I washed dishes I didn't taste.
Every conversation was a negotiation. Do you still want this? Are you staying? Are you leaving? Do you love me enough to try? I kept thinking of the message I saw on her screen.
Can't stop thinking about you.
She gave him something she took away from me long before I realized it. Her attention, her laughter,
Her loyalty.
her softness, her time, her heart. She gave him the love I thought was mine. One evening, she finally told me she couldn't end things with him. She said he made her feel alive. She said she felt understood in a way she didn't feel with me anymore. She said she didn't want to hurt me, but she didn't know how to quit the connection she had built.
She didn't choose me.
You can't force something that isn't yours anymore. I moved out 2 days later. She cried when I packed my bags, clinging to me like losing me was the worst thing that could happen. But if it was truly the worst thing, she wouldn't have let me go in the first place. Her tears didn't call me home. They just reminded me how long I had been holding on to something dying. Healing wasn't quick. It wasn't clean. I hated myself some days. I missed her on others. I replayed every moment in my mind. Every laugh, every drive, every kiss, trying to understand where I went wrong. But sometimes, the truth is simple. I didn't fail. She changed. Months passed. I started going to the gym again. I reconnected with friends I had unintentionally pushed aside. I learned how to cook meals that didn't taste like memories. I walked in the evenings and let silence become peaceful instead of painful. One day, I saw her at a grocery store. She was alone. She looked tired. Her smile wasn't the same. When she saw me, she froze. She whispered my name like it still belonged to her. She asked if I was okay. I said yes, and I meant it. She asked if I hated her. I said no, I didn't hate her anymore. She asked if I still thought about what we had. I told her the truth. Sometimes. But not the way I used to. She hesitated, then said softly, "I miss you." I nodded, but I didn't say it back. Because missing someone isn't enough to rebuild what they destroyed. As I walked away, she stood still, hugging a basket to her chest like she was holding the weight of everything she gave up. Elias wasn't with her. I didn't ask where he was.
It didn't matter anymore.
She once told me I made her feel like home. But the irony is, sometimes home is the place you learn to outgrow. She gave him the love I thought was mine. But losing her taught me something I didn't know I needed to learn. Not everyone who touches your heart deserves to stay there. Not every love is meant to last. And sometimes, the person you break for is the person who frees you without meaning to. I didn't get the ending I wanted, but I got the peace I deserved. And in the quiet corners of my new life, I finally understand. The love that was meant for me will never need to be shared with someone else.